All right, before we get to football anything, one of the topics on the show yesterday was my wife's like, we got to go get the kids Halloween costumes because we're less than 2 weeks away. And you're wearing your shirt. It says "Girl Dad." You've got three girls, Darian.
Yeah.
What's it like in your house? Do we have costumes secured for the kids for the big day here on the 31st?
Yeah. My wife, she's on top of this stuff before October is over with, before September is over, I'm sorry. So yeah, she's all over it. And my oldest two, they're going to be Red and Chloe from The Descendants. And then my baby Zoe, she's going to be Asha from the movie Wish. So, it's great. The kids love it. And, I'm looking forward to having some sweets myself.
Now, are you one of those? Yeah, well, I was just going to say, are you one of those guys that walks around, or do you stay home and hand out candy? Like, what's your role on Halloween? Are you like the guy, hey, Dad, hold this, the bag's getting heavy?
No, I walk around because they're so young right now and they need as much chaperoning as they can get. So, and also, the way it is here, a lot of families just leave the candy outside the door. So it's like a free-for-all, and after 2 or 3 houses, they have a bag full of candy, so they need my help. So, that's how it is.
Dave and I's minds are just blown because growing up where we grew up in Saskatchewan, if you left a bowl of candy out, the first 2 kids that come along are emptying that whole thing in the bag. And then we'll go from there. All right. Enough Halloween. Dave, Plaza of Honor question, fire away. It was a big weekend for Darian last week.
First, I guess, speaking of wearing things, Plaza of Honor ring. It was pretty cool. Are you wearing it? Have you put it with the Grey Cup rings? Where's the Plaza ring?
Yeah, it's right there with it, man. When I after the induction, I had a small autograph session pre-game, and just to see the ring right beside my Grey Cup ring, man, it was awesome. When I had no idea what to expect coming into the week, and when I got there, just, man, the riders just treated me just so first class, and they laid everything out for me and my mom, and thanks to Craig and the whole staff for just showing me so much love. And the event itself was awesome. It's kind of nerve-wracking getting up there and speaking in front of your peers and a group of people who watched you play. But once I got up there, I usually start sweating as soon as I get on stage. But this time I was cool. It was more of a sentimental moment for me, just thanking everyone who was responsible for, my path, my sports path in life, and just so grateful to finally get into the Plaza.
Well, Darian, I'm not going to put you on the spot, I promise, because it was such an amazing weekend. But I'm not going to say what was your favorite moment, but my favorite moment was what you just alluded to when you were on stage. And it wasn't any part of your speech that stood out for me, although it was spectacular. It was looking over and seeing your mom. And it's very hard to see pride, but you could see the pride in her eyes when she was up there watching you. That was the coolest moment to me. What was her takeaways from the weekend?
Wow, she was just blown away as well. I think she's been away from the game for so long that, she doesn't really remember how it felt being in Saskatchewan and the difference that myself and my teammates made in the organization. So she was just blown away by the treatment. And then I think once I got into my speech, and this is the first time she's heard some of the stories that I told, especially the one about my older brother, who was the best athlete in our family. He got kicked out of college at the age of 19, and the devastation that she went through. And I never expressed to her, how the look on her face made me not want to disappoint her ever again in life. So I think hearing, from the bottom of my heart what she meant to me and everyone that played a role in my path, it was just special for her as well.
Did you need to keep Mike McCullough away from her so he wouldn't tell any off jokes?
So what I knew going in was that Roy would be your joke guy, right? He'd keep the crowd, a little on their toes and make sure that they enjoyed a laugh. And I would be more your serious guy and more sentimental. So I made sure I kept Mike far away. Now Getz, who's a little witty himself, I had to warn him at the beginning of the night. I said, look, you're at my table, but enough of that joking and laughing, because this is not the time for that. We did that at dinner with doubles, and this was more of a serious moment for me.
Mike McCullough was showing Darian's mom his flip phone. It's amazing technology that came out in the year 2002.
Yeah,
it went from there.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things. I chuckled to myself because we had you on and we asked you to give us your top 3 players that you had your number your whole career. So on Saturday at halftime, you're out on the field and you and Ryan Phillips are sharing a moment. I'm like, Darian, stay away from Ryan Phillips. Nothing good can come from this. What, if you can share, what was the exchange there? Because it looked like, there was some kind words being shared.
Yeah, you know what? Myself and Ryan, even though we had our battles and he's one of the probably the toughest defensive back I've ever played against, our careers ended with BC and Saskatchewan respectively the same year. So we both traded to Montreal the same year. So that's when we began talking a lot more. We became closer. We became good friends. And, he was my teammate, which is crazy. So, it was great just sharing a moment with him, because he's seen my career from the beginning. And, he just told me that I deserved it. I was a hell of a player. And, I just told him I respect what he's doing now. He's the defensive coordinator, one of the youngest, in the league. And I respect what he's doing. And also another guy that I was able to embrace was John Bowman, who's a CFL Hall of Famer, who, we pretty much entered the league the same year as well. And I was able to be his teammate in Montreal as well. So it was good seeing all my former teammates and guys that I've shared so many battles with. And that's what the league is all about. It's a small league. And, you develop lifelong friends throughout.
Darian, I thought it was very cool that Trevor Harris made sure and really sought out a Darian Durant number 4 jersey to have an opportunity to wear it into the stadium, and the impact that you had on the team. To a man, a lot of them talked about your impromptu address to the team on the field during walkthrough. Were you surprised in anything that you saw in the game, the way they came out and played?
No, not at all. I think, this team is getting hot at the right time. They're stringing together wins. And, I just wanted to let them know that it's all about confidence at this part of the season, right? It's all about making sure that you're not over cocky, you don't get arrogant, because, a lot of times you judge a team based on who beat them. And you can look at Hamilton's record. They have the worst record in the league. And you say, oh, well, Hamilton beat BC, then we should just walk over BC. And a lot of times when you go into games with that type of arrogance, that's when you get beat up on. So I just wanted to let them know that, get the confidence going. Show BC that you can beat them, so that the next time you guys play them, they have that, in the front of their mind, not the back. It's in the front of their mind about, especially when you get a nice butt whipping like what happened last week. They'll always remember that. And that's how you develop confidence. And now the team will have that confidence in playing this team again.
All right, it's Double Talk for Wolf Industries and Prairie Land Rentals. Darian Durant is with us. It's normally on Mondays. We're doing the Friday edition. You had a busy weekend. I can only imagine how many autographs you signed in the 3 or 4 days you were back in Rider Nation.
Yeah.
When I saw you at the game Saturday night after all was said and done with a drink in your hand, I could tell it was probably a look of relief on your face, like who you could come down. Were you surprised, not taking anything away from the Riders and how they played, were you surprised how badly BC played? That just didn't seem like a Rick Campbell team.
Yeah, it didn't. And I think sometimes when you see, one of the first plays of the game, you throw an interception and it hits your guy right in the chest, it bounces off his foot, and it goes back for a touchdown, you can say that, it's just not your day. And, I think that's what happened with BC. And I think another thing we have to discuss with BC is just how, I'm speaking from my perspective only, but how terribly they managed the quarterback situation. I think you have a guy like Vernon Adams who was playing at an MOP level. For him to lose his job and, in that fashion. And, just the big playability from BC you haven't seen. Nathan Rourke has 4 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. And I think it's been terribly mishandled. And a guy shouldn't have to lose his job like that. So, looking forward, I think that if Vernon can go out and play well against Montreal, you may see Vernon in the playoffs, and I think it'll be a different style of BC offense with Vernon Adams at the quarterback position.
Darren, I don't want to be negative here, but you've lived firsthand when an organization has brought in a quarterback late in the year. You've been there, and that can have so many different ramifications. Are you seeing any similarities to what's happening in BC to what you experienced here?
Absolutely, and it doesn't just affect the quarterback; it affects the entire team. You spend all the training camp building chemistry. Even in the offseason, Vernon flies everyone out to Seattle. The receivers, the running backs, they spend a week or two together. They train together. They build this chemistry and camaraderie that it really matters when you get in crunch time situations and games. And I think that you can just see the body language of the receivers. You look at Hollins and McGinnis, early on, they were 1-2 in the league in receiving yards and the stats that they were putting up. I saw a crazy stat which said that Vernon Adams only has 35 more completions than Nathan Rourke, but has over 800 more yards than him. So you could the big playability that the chemistry that these receivers had with Vernon Adams, it just got all messed up when you just throw another quarterback in there.
Well, yesterday when we had Glenn Suter on, there was a lot of talk about the Vernon Adams and the Nathan Rourke. And I'm like, yeah, that's 2 guys. But what about the other 41 guys on the roster and the practice roster? It's so much bigger than that. And you could tell, and Darian, you know this, doesn't matter whether you're at work, you're on a team, even in your family, people segment off into different groups and they have fans of certain people and other fans. Sure. Everybody's saying all the right things, but you've been there. You've got to know, like, this is guys, this is playoff money. This is their jobs on the line. And I bet you there's a lot of side meetings like, hey, we're meeting here for lunch after practice because we got to talk about this. You got guys probably breaking off all over the place. I can only imagine the WhatsApp or the text messages going around because, well, no, I bet you there is a huge contingent that are VA guys that have not.
Absolutely. And bigger.
The first couple of games. Yeah.
Yeah, bigger than that. It's even to the point where you'll have a receiver come off the field, and if they run a certain play that they ran earlier in the season when VA was the quarterback, the receiver will come off and say, I know if you were in there, you would have hit me on that play. It's just little things like that, little chemistry things. And Vernon has a big arm, right? So the big playability, Alexander Hollins downfield, McGinnis across the seam, the 20-yard in routes and seam routes that he's perfected, early on in this season. You don't see that happening with this BC offense. And yeah, you mentioned it. When it comes to guys' livelihood and the money that they make, and teams that win stay together. And the only way to have a long career is to have success if you're not just an extraordinary athlete. So everything goes hand in hand, and your quarterback it's one of the the most important positions on the team. And if you don't have that chemistry with your receivers, then everyone loses, and that's how everyone loses their jobs as well.
Darian, you have to give credit to Vernon Adams Jr., though, publicly, right? He has said all the right things and done the right things, but I would submit that it's got to be eating at him inside, right? When you're watching and saying, I could do that. How do you go ahead and make sure that those emotions don't consume you and they don't eat away and deteriorate who you are?
Yeah, Vernon's just been the ultimate professional. I think even with my time with him, when I was traded to Montreal and he had a little success, and then Montreal brought me in to be the starter and then give him a shot, and then he was traded to Sask, and he's been, team to team, he's been through it. So for him, for these things to have happened earlier in his career, he knows how to handle it as a veteran. But, when you're 31 years old and you know that your clock is ticking, and you're finally starting to have the type of success that could possibly lead you to a MOP. If you look at the numbers, he would have had better stats than Bo at the moment and with more wins. So, the way he's handled this situation has just been amazing. He's just the ultimate pro, and my hat's off to him because I don't know if I could be as gracious as him, especially with the production that he had early in this season.
Well, one of the videos going around on social media, and I saw this during the football game last week, is the guy leading the team in the pregame, getting them all fired up, jumping up and down and doing the dancing. It's Vernon Adams Jr., and he wasn't playing. And Nathan Rourke is nowhere in the shot with the rest of the guys. And even like BC fans are going, why isn't our starting quarterback the one? Like Darian, when you were the starter for the Riders, they probably didn't go to the third string guy that's been on the practice roster for 2 weeks to huddle the team before the game to give, whatever words or to break them down. It just seemed really weird. It's like he's the leader of the team still. He doesn't get any reps. All right. So tonight in Hamilton, Calgary, Hamilton, it's going to be a quarterback carousel offseason. You've got nobody knows what's going on when it comes to the Calgary Stampeders. Matthew Schultz is going to play. Bo Levi Mitchell, who has been benched, who could be MOP type numbers. He's not going to make the playoffs. Is this a statement game for Bo to be for both teams to be like, you gave up on me, and Hamilton, I will show you?
Yeah, I think this is, as a competitor, you couldn't ask for a better situation than to be going against your former team, and you have an opportunity to show your new team and your home fans that you belong, and you want to have another year to show what you can do. So he's in a great situation, in my opinion, especially for a veteran guy. And you hate to say this, but I'm sure he's happy to see Calgary struggling right now. For them to be having quarterback problems, and for them to feel like he's over the hill and he can't play anymore. I expect Bo to come out and have a huge game. I think the over and under on his passing yards was 305. I definitely think he will exceed that. And, show that he belongs, because in the second half of the year, he showed that he could still throw up with some of the best of them. And, it was just the chemistry. They brought in Chris Jones late as a defensive coordinator. So I think that Hamilton has showed that this team, given off season together, could really make some noise next year.
Update on the Hamilton game. It's already 7-zip, 66 yards for Bo Levi.
There you go.
Whoa.
There you go.
Stat guy Curtis jumping in. It's been kind of sad watching the Ottawa Red Blacks crumble down the stretch here. A lot of people think that they will end up losing to Toronto tomorrow, which means they will not have a home playoff game. They will play Toronto, and the Toronto is going to win the East semifinal. Do you see anything in the Red Blacks to make you think that they're going to win one of the next two football games?
Well, the only good thing they have going is that they're 6-1 at home, and one tie, of course. So they have turned, their stadium into a home field advantage. So I think that, and Coach Dice has coached in a whole bunch of big games. I think they need to settle in on who's their quarterback moving forward, and who they choose to lead the team, because that's very important. It's kind of the same situation that's in BC. Guys feel for Masoli and know that he has the experience and want to see him play. But Drew Brown showed earlier in this season that he can get it done and he can play at a high level. So, it's a tough situation. I still think Toronto is the better team, but, anything can happen, and Ottawa's at home. And, the least that can happen is, we're going to get a good game. That's the main thing. And I'm excited to see what happens with that game.
Darian Durant here in Saskatchewan, the Rough Riders are on a bye week. I'm not sure if a late season bye week is a good thing or a bad thing, but I am fascinated by what the approach of this team might be next week, because they will know before they go on the field, but not before they go on the field, if you know what I mean, as to whether or not they've still got a shot at first place in the West Division. Also, you want to make sure that you protect the players, because you don't want anybody getting injured going into the playoffs, a game that you know you're going to host, but also you want to make sure you're continuing rolling. How do you balance all of those?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to balance, and I think that when you're only dressing 42 or 44 guys, you can't have backups for every single position. So some of your key guys are going to have to play regardless. So but it's good that they can find out beforehand what their situation is. I was thinking back to the BC game this past week and those hits that Trevor took, late in the game when the game was over. You don't want to see that, and I'm sure that Coach Mace will do a good job of protecting Trevor. If Winnipeg wins, and there's no chance of them locking up the Western Final. So we'll see how it goes, and it's just a fine line that you have to play, on both sides, and it's a tough situation. But if there's anyone you have to protect, it's Trevor Harris. He's hot. He's over 75%. Over the past 4 games, and he's a guy that you can't afford to lose right now.
I know the competitor that you are, so if you go ahead and you're preparing for this week, number one, how do you prepare, and number two, what would you have wanted to do if you could put yourself in the spot of Trevor Harris?
Well, first of all, I would have wanted to come out of that BC game a little bit earlier, or we run the ball late instead of me taking those hits. But if I'm Trevor, you know what? You don't want to get rusty when you're firing and you're clicking, and the game is slowed down for you like it has for Trevor. You want to get as many reps as you can with the guys to build that chemistry. And, hopefully it's cold and it's windy and you can get a playoff type atmosphere preview going so you can, get a feel for what it'll be like. So, like I said, it's hard to say, but if I'm Trevor, I want to play at least a half. If there's, if it's a meaningless game, I will want to get a half in, continue to build that chemistry and get those reps going, and then rest up and get ready for the West semifinal, if that's the case.
And if I'm one of the receivers, I'm telling you as the quarterback, we're only throwing out routes. I'm not running across the middle. You're nuts. I'll fake a leg injury, a hammy. I'm going to go down and I'll be on the bench over there. Yeah. But I am not doing 7 yards across the middle. Okay?
Absolutely.
Michael,
absolutely.
Wait.
Coaches have double game plans, right? They have a game plan for if they really need the game, and they need certain plays, and if the game is out of reach and the backups need to play, they have a certain game plan for that as well.
Do they have a game plan as well when it comes to protecting their playbook, i.e. I don't want to show too much late in the season, even though you've already played 17 games?
See, I think the problem with this is going to be you're playing against Calgary, right? You're playing against a team who guys are fighting for their pro lives right now. So, there may be some dirtiness, there may be some chippiness, some late hits. It would be different if you're playing against a team that already clinched and they're resting their guys. But when you're playing against a team where guys are fighting for their jobs and their livelihoods, you never know what to expect. So I would definitely want to protect Trevor in these situations, especially against a team that has nothing to lose.
All righty. It's Double Talk for Wolf Industries and Prairieland Rentals. Darian, as always, we'll wrap on this. A quick NFL note. Do the Minnesota Vikings stay undefeated, or your brother played for the Lions, didn't he? For a bit, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He did 3 years in Detroit. Yeah.
Do Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions knock off the Minnesota Vikings this week?
Man, if I was a betting guy, I would say yes, just because they're battle-tested. They've been in NFC championships, and what they went down to Dallas and did last week to the Cowboys was just embarrassing for the Cowboys. So if I was a betting man, I'd put my money on Detroit. But Minnesota's hot, man, and they're looking good. So it's a tough one, but I'm looking forward to a good game. That's what it's all about for me. Two of the best teams in the league going at it, and it's going to be a good one.
Well, and it's crazy that Jerry Jones, it was such an embarrassing blowout. I don't know if you heard it. I think we have the audio. We'll play before the end of the show. Jerry Jones on his radio show the next day threatened to fire the radio guys like us who they pay to ask the questions
Wow.
because they asked about the game and how bad it was. That's how bad things are in Jerry world these days. I don't think he's going to win GM Executive of the Year in the NFL. It's 3 decades of Jerry running this thing into the ground, and that was a tough football game to watch. Just all around. That was a tough football game to watch. All right, my man. We'll let you get back to being a girl dad. As always, if you've missed any part of Double Talk, you can always catch the podcast at sportscage.com.